Hi, I'm Andrea McLean.
And I'm Mireille Sula.
And welcome to a very special edition of The Agenda, where we have broadened things out somewhat, haven't we, Mirella?
Absolutely. We're bringing the agenda to the next level. What does that mean? We have been running a media training all day, and we have got together incredible women, female founders, entrepreneurs, investors who have dreams. And at The Agenda, we do not only to talk theory. We haven't been doing just the training. We also want to get the training to the real world. That's why we have a very special guest today.
We do. We have a very special guest in the form of Toby Sculthorp, who is a senior news editor at Sky. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm delighted to be here.
Well, you say that, you don't know what's about to happen, because we're about to let loose our agenda women on you. And you very kindly allowed them to ask any questions to do with media and this kind of thing. So, yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Before we let the women free with a microphone, if you'd like to just explain, what your job entails, how long you've been working in the industry.
So I've been working in the industry for a very, very long time, for over 35 years, and I've seen a lot of changes in that time, which I'd quite like to talk about if we have the opportunity. My primary background is I'm a documentary filmmaker. I've made many documentaries in my time, but since I've joined Sky 10 years ago, I've done other things. I launched the Sunday morning politics show, which was with a woman called Sophie Ridge. Scandalously, the first woman till 2016 to present a flagship political show on British television. So we were very pleased about that, very successful. Sophie is a wonderful journalist. And currently I am producing a foreign affairs podcast called The World with Richard Engel and a woman called Yalda Hakim, who again is one of the best journalists I've ever worked with. She's a fantastic reporter and analyst and a real role model for women everywhere.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sparing your time with us today. Who would like to go first?
You
would like to go first.
No, the way I feel the energy has shifted in the room, and I love this inner circle, is let's create a forum where all of us participate to bring to the table ideas, but in the same time, people who are watching it can see what it means to have a women's forum, but also to bring the journalism perspective. So yeah, let's open it up. Ladies, we all have been going through incredible experience today, but now that we have practiced and we want to get these ideas to the real media world, what would be a question that you would raise when you're ready to put yourself out there with your message?
I'm happy to. Hi Toby, thank
Hello.
you for joining us today. It's an honour to meet you. My question would be, as somebody who's fairly new to the media, the entrepreneurial journey, what would be your best advice or top tips to start to get seen in the media and get taken seriously?
So I think there's been a big revolution in the media over the last few years, and there's been a real shift of power. And the shift of power has come away from me, to a certain extent, to everybody here. Everybody here now has the ability to be a journalist or a filmmaker or a podcaster. And you have the technology in the shape of this phone that we can all go out and make films. So when people come to me, when I interview people for a job at Sky News, I'm not interested in where they went to school. I'm not really interested in where they went to university. I'm interested if they've shown sufficient ambition and attitude to create their own content. And they're the ones that I will favour over and above anybody else. I'm not really interested in your background or your education. What have you done physically to go out there and do some of your own films? They can be short films, they can be about anything. But it proves to me that you are serious in your intent to become a journalist. Elon Musk, a very controversial figure, on Twitter, put out a tweet, X they call it now, forgive me, during the American election campaign. And he said something very significant. He said to all his millions and millions of followers, "You are all the journalists now." And that was true. Anybody can be a journalist. Now that has enormous implications for people like me who work in the legacy media. Some people see it as catastrophic. like all revolutions, it gives everybody an opportunity. And I think it gives an opportunity to all of you here today, and you should seize it.
Wonderful.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Taking from there and you saying everyone can be a journalist, I will like to put my own perspective and ask for your
Sure.
advice. I have been in a profession, investment banking, for more than 25 years. I think my experience is now good to share with other people, so mentorship and other things. So I have taken that to pot vlogs and talks and press articles, interviews even. So how would I progress to, let's say, being on, I'm just aspirating here, your show, for instance, as an expert on whatever I'm good at?
Well, it's the first question you have to ask yourself, do you want to come on to Sky News or the BBC or wherever, when you could be in control of your message and what you want to say? You could have your own YouTube channel and you could be interviewing the people that are important in your world. The thing about legacy news organisations, they have their own agenda, and they will obviously be tackling the big news stories of the day, and they may not have the time, the capacity, or the interest to pursue more narrow interests, because it's just the big news and current affairs stories of the day. So you have to turn it on its head. Do I really need you? Do I need Toby in my life when I can have myself? And I can create my own media ecosystem. I can create my own YouTube channel. I can create my own podcast. I can select who I have on, and I can select about who I interview. And that becomes tremendously liberating. You then have to work out, which everybody else has to work out, how do you reach a wider audience with that? But if you understand who your audience is and who you're broadcasting to, then that gives you an advantage. So that's what I would say. In a way, forget about me. I belong in a museum.
I think it's a question of also getting
well
credibility, as we call it.
Yeah.
So I am good at my work, people in my field might know it. But how do I tell a general public who doesn't know me that my message is credible? Somebody like Sky putting a stamp on it would be credibility, for instance.
So can I put that question back to you? What is the message you would like to get out? What would you like for a wider audience to hear?
The same thing about whatever I talk about, experience, culture, mentorship, entrepreneurs, whatever message is being said at the moment to a smaller audience, which I control the message as well. But I would like it to spread wider.
Yes, no, I take that on board. And what when you say entrepreneurship, what area do you work in? Can I ask you?
I work in investment banking, so it is strategic, it is fundraise, it's virtually everything.
Well,
M&A, mergers and acquisition.
Okay, so if you're working in M&A and investment banking, so you think, well, who's going to be interested in this particular area? And there is a dedicated news program, business program on Sky News, but you probably find more traction with somewhere like Bloomberg. They would be interested in it, and then it becomes a sort of piece of detective work. Who is in charge of which program? Who is the editor of which strand? And everybody loves a bit of personal direction. I used to love it when people would write to me with my name, because they bothered to find out who instead of dear sir or madam or whatever, dear Toby Sculthorp, I've watched your program and I think X, Y, and Z. And if you show interest in what the output is, then you'll get an audience, because we're all insecure, we all like to be flattered, and that will get your foot through the door. It's just that direct marketing, as you'll know, marketing, it's the direct approach.
Thank you.
Hi Toby,
Hi.
I think you've just answered the question actually, but I know you mentioned ambition and attitude. How do you prioritise what news that you put on? Say, for example, in the 24-hour period, is it based on the content? Is it current affairs? Is it personality? Or is it a combination of everything?
It's a combination of all those things. So when you work on a rolling news channel, obviously you'll be responding to the big breaking stories. So, I mean, today off the top, actually I haven't watched the news today, I've been too busy doing something else. But off the top, if I think about yesterday, you'll be doing, Ukraine will feature very heavily because of the missiles being fired. And whatever Keir Starmer's up to, or whatever the opposition are up to, you have to cover that. Then occasionally you will do what we call off-diary stories. There was an off-diary story yesterday around the 10 o'clock news about the shoplifting epidemic that's sweeping through Britain. So they did a special report on that. So it's a combination of what's on the news agenda, the news diary, the things you have to cover as a news organisation, And then some people will be taking decisions to do what they call off-diary stories, which will be more in-depth investigations. I don't actually come from a news background. I come from a documentary background. And what we would do when we're doing that, we would say, well, what is the big subject that we want to go into in depth and spend weeks or months and quite a lot of money doing it? So that's a slightly different thing. But I would say, the final thing I would say is that all news organisations have to be very careful in what they do. They have to be, we are a business and we have to be responsive to what our audience wants and what they want to see. And I think too many news organisations, and Andrea, you may know this, don't really understand their audience enough. And if you don't understand your audience, you're going to die.
I think also you are shouting into the void with something that you feel is terribly important.
Yeah.
You're not paying any attention as to whether it's landing or resonating in any way. Which leads me to what I was thinking, listening to your questions. How much power then does a regular viewer or a contributor who has a passion that they really want to get out into the wider world? Now, you mentioned that you're a documentary filmmaker, so this is something that you would look to spend a longer period of time really digging into a subject. If a so-called normal punter at home really has a great idea, is it worth pitching it to someone like you?
Well, to be brutally honest with everybody here at the moment, now is not a good time to be pitching documentary ideas because the whole industry, the traditional industry, is not faring very well. It's not being invested in. I know people who are 100 times better filmmakers than I am who cannot get arrested at the moment. They cannot get anything commissioned. They'll be coming off one successful project and then suddenly there's nothing. And that applies to camera people, picture editors, sound recorders, and Andrew will know as well as I do, or anybody else who works in the industry, now is not a good time. So that's why I think, we're trying to be positive, you have to start sort of doing things yourselves.
Okay.
What is a good time for? What is the best, a best project or a best idea? What is thriving right now in the world of production and television?
I would say on the documentary thing, what's really exploded over the last few years is people love stories, and and they love crime stories. Crime is very popular.
We didn't expect that. What about love stories?
Well, love stories. People like and again, Andrea, I think will back me up on this. That we are in the doom and gloom business very often.
Yeah.
And
misery sells, unfortunately.
Yeah, misery sells. But people do like the upbeat messages as well. And lots of people I talk to who don't work in the industry, they say two things. What is that? What do you do? What has it got to do with my life? Doesn't impact on my life at all. And it just makes you miserable if you look at the news. So everybody likes a good news story. Everyone likes an upbeat story.
Yeah.
And remember the Colonel Tom story,
yes.
Captain Tom story.
Captain
But the sad thing about that's now all unravelling because the family turned out to rip people off. So there's the two sides of it, if you like, in one example. Everybody liked the good news upbeat story at a time of national sort of anxiety, but then it turns out the crime angle, I'd be careful what I say, there's no crime has been committed, but there's questions over where the money has gone.
So it's finding that balance, isn't it, between light and
yeah.
shade and tapping into the... Really, we watch emotionally as viewers, and if something horrifies us or uplifts us, we'll stay engaged.
Hi, Toby.
Hi.
Talking of crime,
Yes.
and I do love true crime, I'm going to link it to midlife, where we look at women going through midlife and it's a bit chaotic and so forth, and sometimes it can be quite criminal because of the chaos that's in their lives. I'm interested in doing a podcast. So for me to reach that audience, what 3 tips could you give me to start a podcast in that arena?
So, I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's a really, really smart idea. 3 tips would be you need to find good case studies, good stories, and it's a terrible thing, you have to be and concentrate on how do you tell the story. You've got the subject, how do you highlight it with the right stories? Because it goes back to what Andrea says, how are we going to bring people in? Yeah. And so you start off with the stories and then you find the characters that come in. But I think it's such a good idea, I'm going to talk to you separately about it.
Well,
Yes, and I think Andrea, this is a subject I think you'll be better qualified to talk about.
Well, I don't know, because obviously with my sort of 20 odd years of working in daytime television, I know that we very, very strongly relied on feedback from the viewers, and we cared really passionately about offering a service to our viewers and our listeners and everything else, because we wanted to be of service to them. And I think very often when people think of a podcast, it can be almost a vanity project of, I feel really strongly about this thing and therefore everyone needs to hear what I have to say, rather than actually I'm of service and I have something that can be really helpful to someone or entertaining. And I think quite often when we want to put ourselves out there, what we offer needs to be either entertaining or helpful. It's really one of those things. If it's true crime, it's horrifying, but I need to keep listening. Or it's, wow, I really didn't know that. Which is why Stephen Bartlett's podcast does so well, because it's not only entertaining, because he gets big guests in, but it's incredibly informative as well. And it's why the younger generation, my kids, are listening to girls in bathrooms gossiping, or whatever that podcast is called, that kind of thing. So it's entertainment and infotainment.
That is the best advice you're going to hear this evening.
Yeah. And it's always about supply and demand. We have to identify what is the gap in the market, because as Toby said, it's so much happening out there and it's so much competition, but there is always a tiny little gap, and especially the midlife crisis, I think it's a spot on topic.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
And also, don't do it just thinking, oh, I need to do it like them. That's how that famous person does it. Do it in your voice.
Yes.
Your voice is amazing. We've been hearing your voice today. And your unique take on things, your humor, don't try and copy anyone else. As Oscar Wilde says, be yourself, everyone else is taken. And it is completely true.
The audience are very good at picking up on phoniness, and if you're not authentic, if you're none of you yourselves, they will know automatically.
Yeah. 100%.
Congratulations.
We can't wait to tune in.
Hi, Toby.
Hi.
Very happy to have you here today. I have a question, maybe a little bit provoking, but it's interesting to hear your opinion. So I think we are all here trying to bring a little bit more of love and connection in the world. But what we are doing, and even if we are all journalists, as you say, using our phones and podcasts and trying to bring as much as we can our message out, the television is almost in every home.
Yes.
Right. So the message that the television can spread is much, much more accessible to everyone, right? So where the Sky, or maybe as a whole traditional media standing here about bringing more of love and connection, because we are living in the world where we have all necessary tools to be connected, but we are more disconnected than ever before. And I think the classical media, they shape identities on a very deep level, right? So what do you think about it, and how do you think the television can bring a bit more of that connection in the every home?
Well, I'm going to disagree with you about the power of television, because if you look at all the research at the moment, it is dying. It is dying on its feet. So what's happened in America, where we work for a company called Comcast, they have a channel, a news channel called MSNBC, which used to be extremely popular. It is absolutely flatlining at the moment. Better be careful what I say about our own viewing figures, are absolutely flatlining at the moment. Nobody is watching terrestrial television. Nobody's watching terrestrial television news. So when I say that the power lies in your hands, I really mean it. And people now are talking about, if you talk about the great sort of TV news revolutions, they spent hundreds of millions of pounds with GB News, hundreds of millions of pounds with, what's the Piers Morgan one called? The
Talk TV.
Talk TV.
Yeah.
And it was just a waste of money. Now Piers Morgan is on a streaming channel, and that's where they should have started in the beginning. Everybody's setting up their own streaming channels, all their TikTok feeds, or all this kind of thing. And that's where increasingly people like me who work in television, my God, they're doing this on streaming, they're doing this on TikTok, they're doing this on this social media platforms. What can we learn from them? So television, I understand what you're saying, because but a certain demographic will watch television. There's a Fox News executive called a dreadful man called Roger Ailes, who said that the people that watch television news are between 55 and dead.
Oh,
And that is the demographic. No young people watch it at all.
Yeah,
They're just not interested in it. So I would again say that the great revolution is the great democratization of output. The power really is in your hands. It really is.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
a very exciting time.
And that's why I'm asking, are there conversations actually about to bringing more of that material that young generation is looking for?
The whole time television executives are saying, that's why I have no hair. I pull my hair out. How are we going to get young people to watch?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I don't think we can, because they have their own interests.
And if you look at the figures, actually, statistically, I think it's 16 to 25-year-olds will consume. I think it's 98% of their news and their input is in their phone or online. So whilst we do tend to see sort of linear television or mainstream television as like the Holy Grail, actually it's not. It's YouTube and it's TikTok and this kind of thing, which is terrifying, but it's also really liberating.
Yeah.
Because it means, exactly
it's
like you say.
terrifying for the likes of me that have done it in there, because suddenly we're about to be put into the dustbin of history, and quite right too. Industries come and they fall, and
we're living in interesting times.
We are living, and it's an opportunity to be seized.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah.
Now the question is, what does
change
it take? What does it take for us to claim that power? Because many of us, we underestimate how much we can grow. I remember when I started the magazine, I thought it's just going to be a little tiny thing. I would never ever imagine that this can go global. So you never know how much we can grow, but maybe if you can give us some tips for, let's say, startups, beginners. Every guru has been a beginner at some point. What does it take to grow to that level where we don't focus on the media or big media or mainstream media, but we focus on growing our own channel?
Well, again, I'm going to throw this back at you, Marilla, because I don't know any of your backgrounds, but I think you all have an entrepreneurial background, or you all work in different areas.
Yes.
Just take those skills and apply that to whatever media project you have. You are all better placed to do these startups than probably I am, because you all have entrepreneurial backgrounds. I'm just a sort of jobbing journalist. I have looked into trying, I have my own ideas about it. But again, it comes down to the content. Understand what your audience is, understand who you want to reach, understand how to tell stories. But if you're all entrepreneurs, you've got a head start already.
Yeah, that's why we call in the Global Woman Club, we call these people influencers, because somehow we are influencing. And influencer doesn't necessarily mean you have just some followers in Instagram or social media. It's somebody who has the ability to impact other people, change their life.
Yeah.
We inspire others all the time. Now, again, my question is like, why some people do so well and they broadcast all day long and they're so confident? Otherwise, I say, take the mic, get out of the house, and get the news. So usually the ladies laugh with me. Get the news. What is new today? What is something special today? Now, where is the difference between successful people and not that much successful people when it comes to get that news right?
Mirella, if I knew the answer to that, do you think I would be fighting with you over chocolate bars?
That's why we invited you to give us some answers.
I genuinely do not know.
No.
I cannot tell you that. I can put
So
my
how
hand on my
are
heart.
some people just become success in a year?
Do you know what it is? I think a lot of it is authenticity and connection.
That's right.
It's not being fake. And actually, it doesn't even matter if you're the best. It's having the confidence and the self-belief to really believe in the thing that you are offering that is of service, whether it is entertainment or whether it is love or uplifting or midlife or aesthetics or helping people, championing people who need to know about how to financially grow or find their spiritual side and be soul-led, or to look into their health and make sure that they are eating and doing exactly the right things. As long as we do it with authenticity and conviction and passion and follow what we say and learn how to say it articulately.
A microphone and a camera.
With a microphone and a camera. Absolutely. I wanted to finish with you, Judith, because obviously you haven't had a say yet.
So something like this, what Mirella and Andrea are doing, that would appeal to a television audience for the 55 and dead?
I think, well, yes.
To see women who have ideas and want to promote them.
Well, you worked on one of the most successful programs and innovative. People followed what you did because you had the magic formula. You clicked. Smart women talking about subjects that other smart women are interested in. And it's as simple as that. So that's what, if you can recreate that here, then you're onto a winner. Because it was phenomenally successful, wasn't it?
It was a juggernaut of a show. 25 years now, Loose Women has been running. And I remember on my time there, I ended up being the longest serving anchor of one of the biggest shows on British television. And people would kind of laugh at it. Oh, it's just a bunch of women talking. And I felt really passionately, strongly that it's not. What an amazing opportunity where you have 4 different women with very different and opposing views, having the intelligence to be able to have a robust disagreement and then move on and talk about something else, so that millions of women at home, each of whom would have an opinion that was represented by each woman, felt heard and seen. And that was the magic. People felt heard and seen.
And I say that is a blueprint that other programs should follow, because you had conversations, intelligent, articulate conversations about subjects that mattered, that reached a wide audience. Everybody look and listen and learn from Loose Women. Seriously.
Oh, I love that. I never thought I'd hear that today.
It's true. We could all, and I did actually do a roundtable chat show, and we tried to get all of you, but you said we don't want to get anything to do with you. But no, look at what works, and that is a formula that worked. And I've never had an original idea in my life, but I've ripped off people that, I see that works. Okay, I'll take a bit of that, I'll take a bit of that. And the other thing I would also say, if you're embarking on this business, I don't really know very much, but I know somebody that does. Always surround yourself with people who know what they're doing. And there's a lot of them out there.
And don't be afraid to ask. If someone knows more than you, reach out, ask. Exactly like, we did here and ended up with you.
Yes, exactly. We have the perfect example.
So Loose Women is still on.
Oh yes, it's somehow surviving without me. I mean, I don't yes, it is still going and still going very strong.
Yeah.
Well,
it is.
You didn't actually answer my question.
Which is what?
What they've started here, this agenda and training women. I think that would appeal.
You just said yes.
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 Yeah.
So
we're going to
television
take it next level.
Could film their training day sessions.
It could do. I mean, you could. Okay, I'm just trying to go back to when I worked in factual television and not news. They're always looking for narratives that you can follow. So you could follow each or all of you here if you wanted to come back. Different characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of you, different backgrounds. You've all got a goal. Yes, I could see how that would work as a fly on the wall documentary.
Hitching them up with different people and seeing people who are offering people a mentor.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to mentor that person. I'd like to mentor that person.
People like to see success stories. People like to see people do well.
Yes.
They really do.
See something.
Oh, well, we heard it here first. I like that. I like that.
And especially people who have been going through lots of challenges and they build that resilience and they show to others that everything is possible. Don't give up. You don't give up when you're tired, when you're exhausted. You have a goal. You stop only when you arrive.
It's something like the apprenticeship, where people came on and then someone said, I'll take over and help them.
Yeah.
So this could happen with the training day session.
Absolutely.
Well, we hired Judith to represent us.
Toby, thank
no
you
pressure,
for
Toby, but
I've had
thank you so much.
I've really enjoyed it. I've had a great time.
I guarantee you there was no plan, there was no agenda behind
us
in the agenda.
Oh, but no, you've given us such brilliant insights. Thank you so much.
I'm delighted to meet you. I wish you all so much luck. And I look at you all, I know that you can all do it.
Thank you. And we are neighbors now, so are you open sometimes to bring you...
We'll bring him chocolate. Now we know what he likes. That was great, Marilla, wasn't it?
That was wonderful.
That was a spur-of-the-moment decision, and I think we're going to continue. That was our agenda.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
we haven't been here all day.